You are now live, Dan. Thank you.
And Dave, and Kathy and Aaron and everyone else. Good evening and welcome to the August 12th meeting of the East Lansing Planning Commission. Mr. Haywood, would you please call roll?
Bowman.
Here.
Boyle.
Here.
Cahill.
Here.
Kusler.
Here.
Sullivan.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
And Wolf.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I'll take this opportunity to thank everyone for their continued and anticipated patience as we continue to test this new technology in our remote meetings. I will remind everybody that all members of the public will have a chance to address the commission during public comment and during each public hearing that is on our agenda. Each commission member will be called on individually to speak during each item. A commission member may pass if they do not have a comment on that item. Commission members are reminded to state their name before speaking, making a motion, and so on, so that we can keep proper records of our proceedings, and that all votes of consequence will be taken as a roll call vote. That said, I'll move on to item 1.2, the approval of the agenda for this evening. You all had a copy of the agenda in your packet. I would entertain a motion to approve that agenda. I appreciate you using your names, but I heard Wolf and I think I heard Kusler. So I'm going to say that that was moved by Commissioner Wolf, and I will ask Commissioner Kusler if you'd be willing to second.
Support.
Appreciate that. Any discussion on that motion? I'm seeing no hands, and so though all those in favor, please, we'll do a voice vote here. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? And those opposed? That motion passes. Also in your packet was a copy of the minutes for the July 22nd, 2020 meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Wolf, so moved.
Boyle, second.
Thank you. That's been moved by Commissioner Wolf and seconded by Vice Chair Boyle. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, and so all those in favor will use a voice vote again. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? That motion passes as well. Moving us on to item 2, committee reports. I do not believe that we have any reports from any committees. And then on to item 3, staff reports. Mr. Haywood.
Thank you. So I guess at this time, I'd like to, I suppose there's no one who probably doesn't know this, but Dana Watson was appointed to City Council and has submitted a resignation from the Planning Commission. So I guess thanks to her for her service and wish her the best on council. Council action last night, they approved 5 special use permits, 3 for adult use marijuana retailers at 3315 Coolidge Road, 1950 Merritt Road, and 1234 East Grand River Avenue. We also approved the modification for a special use permit at 605 MAC for the expansion of a sorority, and the special use permit at 300 West Grand River for a fitness center. And that's all I have for tonight. Thanks.
Any questions for Mr. Haywood regarding his report? Very well. Thank you, Mr. Haywood. Moving us on to commissioner announcements, and I will echo Mr. Haywood's comments regarding congratulations to both Councilmember Watson and Councilmember Bacon on their recent appointment to City Council, and use that opportunity to remind public at large that we now have 2 vacancies on the Planning Commission. We are currently in receipt of 3 applications for those 2 vacancies, but that should not prevent any interested citizen who would like to participate as a member of the Planning Commission to turn in an application. I expect that Mr. Haywood and I will be interviewing the applicants in the next week or so. And so there's still time if anyone else is interested, if any other members of the public are interested, to apply. And I would all encourage each of you commissioners, if you can think of people that might be interested, certainly reach out to them and let them know. Any other commissioner announcements? All right, then we'll move on to communications from citizens. This is the time in our meeting when we invite members of the public to come forward and make comments on any item that is on our agenda or possibly not on our agenda. I will make specific note that we have 2 items of old business, and if you are here to comment on those items and you are not an applicant on either of those items, both the MSU FCU building and the potential lot split at 16696 Towar Avenue, those are items of old business, and so you would not be permitted to make a comment on those at the time they come up during the meeting, and so now would be the time to come forward and speak to those items. Each caller in the queue will have 5 minutes to address the commission. At the end of 5 minutes, you will be placed back on mute. Callers will be identified by the last 3 digits of their phone number so that when called on, you will be unmuted and we will encourage you to begin speaking then. If you do not wish to speak when called upon, please indicate so by saying pass. If you do wish to speak, we ask that you please clearly state your name and address before addressing the commission. This is not a requirement of you making those comments, but it does help us keep our records and our minutes accurate. That said, I'm not sure who's our moderator tonight. Is it you, Ms. Urdalis? Mr. Parcell? I'm not sure who to
It's
ask.
Dave.
That'll be me for public.
Mr. Haywood.
1 second. So it looks like we have quite a crowd for attendees. Many of them, it looks like, are applicants. So for public comment, each caller in the queue will have 5 minutes to address the board. At the end of 5 minutes, they'll be placed back on mute. Callers will be identified by the last 3 digits of their phone number. When called upon, you will be unmuted and able to speak at that time. If you do not wish to speak, please indicate so by saying pass. If you choose to speak, please clearly state your name and address before addressing the board. So at this time, calling on caller with the last 3 digits of their phone number of 058. You are now unmuted and can address the Planning Commission.
Pass.
Okay, thank you. Now caller with the last 3 digits 227, you are now unmuted and can address the City Council or the Planning Commission.
Pass.
All right, thank you. Caller with the last 3 digits 347, you are now unmuted.
Yeah, my name is John Marsh. I live at 16848 Tower, which is south of the proposed lot split. And that I just want to reiterate that I am against splitting the lot. I believe it does take away from the rural nature of the area. I attempted to send you guys some historical information via email. However, somehow that failed, so you never received it and that. But that's pretty much all I just wanted to say is that I am not for splitting the lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marsh.
All right. Caller with the last 3 digits 4099, you are now unmuted and able to address Planning Commission.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present a statement to the City of East Lansing Planning Commission regarding the proposed parcel split of 16969 Towar Avenue, East Lansing, Michigan. My name is Mary Cook. I own property located at 16736 Towar Avenue and the adjacent vacant property which has no street address. My property was split into 2 parcels prior to its being included in a 425 tax exchange between Bath Township and the City of East Lansing in 2003. My exhaustive research has shown that pursuant to the Land Division Act, Public Act 288, updated in 1991 and 1996, which provides guidelines on land divisions, my property was probably split prior to 1985. I have not been successful in contacting anyone to determine why it was split. There's one huge difference between my parcel that has a flag-like split and the parcel next door to me, located at 16969 Towar Avenue, which is being considered to be split. The difference is that while my two pieces of land may be technically separate with different tax numbers, they have never been owned by different people at the same time. They are always sold together, and when the day comes when I sell my property many years in the future, they again will be sold together. Because they remain the same in the same owner's hands, they appear to be one parcel, not two. There's no distinction by appearance. The continuity of aesthetics remain. With the proposed split of the parcel located at 16969 Towar Avenue, there will be two very distinct looks. One large house versus one small house. One is a deep, large lot with outbuildings versus the other being a tiny square lot. There cannot be any visual continuity as the physical attributes are very different. On my property, I operate an equine business. It's separate and distinct from Nottingham Equestrian Center, located directly to my south. I am well acquainted with the owners of Nottingham Equestrian Center and often do business with them, but we are now and will remain separate entities. If in the future I choose to change the course of my business and perhaps go into another small agricultural business, such as raising a passel of swine, it would have limited impact on Nottingham Equestrian Center. As I have addressed previously, I am concerned with the safety of the horses that graze and are ridden on and near my property and their handlers and riders. More houses mean more traffic. More traffic can lead to accidents with both equines and the wildlife in the area. There is a significant deer and wild turkey population, along with many skunks, raccoons, and foxes that call this area their home. Towar Avenue is often foggy during the morning commute time. More traffic offers more opportunity for dangerous collisions. Towar Avenue already sees many people who can't either read or don't think that a dead end sign applies to them. Driving down to the dead end only to turn around and drive back again. We already have traffic looking for the dog park located off Chandler Road.
Caller
We
has
do
one.
not need any more traffic. The area available to turn around is limited, and the dust and gravel they throw up is not appreciated. Why am I so concerned about the traffic? How much traffic could one house bring? Lots. When the current house on 16969 Towar Avenue was built, the owner was operating a marijuana growing facility. Was it medical marijuana? I have no idea. There's a tremendous amount of traffic generated to and from that house at all hours. Local law enforcement was aware. Cars were driving fast down Towar Avenue to the house, staying there for a short period of time and departing, often at a high rate of speed. This property is an isolated location. I feel that a parcel split may result in one or both of the parcels being involved in such a business again. As I have stated, I am opposed to the proposed two-piece parcel split. I'm very opposed to splitting 16969 Towar Avenue into more than two parcels for all of the same reasons, should that option be proposed in the future. I ask for the Planning Commission to consider the safety of animals and humans and the symmetry of the lot and deny this and any other future proposed split of 16969 Towar. May God bless the decision-making of this commission and the decision it must provide. May God bless America today and always. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Do you have any questions for me?
Ms. Cook, it doesn't look like I don't see any hands, so I don't believe that any of the commissioners have questions for you.
All righty, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next caller on our queue is caller with the last three digits 738. You are now unmuted and can address the Planning Commission.
Pass.
Next caller in the queue is last three digits 927. You are now unmuted and can address the Planning Commission.
Pass.
Thank you. Now, next in our queue is caller with the last three digits 963. You are now unmuted and can address the Planning Commission.
Hi, this is Alice Dreger from 621 Sunset Lane. I wanted to just make 2 points and, speak to 2 issues. And also just note, Chairman Bowman, that the phone number and the access codes are not on the agenda. So you might want to read those after my comments so that if people are watching and they're not sure how to access, you could give it to them. It was on the electronic meetings page, but if people don't know to look there, it may be hard to find. First, on the MSU-FCU project, everybody's very excited about this proposal, and I share that excitement. It's a project that will bring office workers to downtown, bring community space, and bring a significant amount of taxes, not just property taxes, but personal property taxes and income taxes, while the income tax lasts. It becomes easy to think there's no way we would say no to this, and as a consequence, to neglect to pay attention to details that could perhaps be fixed now to avoid some problems later. A few things I think are worth Planning Commissioners' time and attention. First, the construction containment plan. Closing a lane of Albert Avenue and a lane of Abbot Road is going to again have a significant impact on the flow of traffic downtown in an area where businesses have long suffered from that. We've required of other developers closing lanes downtown to make payments to help with marketing to help downtown businesses. The issue of such payments is not for the Planning Commission to discuss, but the construction plan is. And I hope you'll think carefully about whether or not there's some way to deal with this problem. Secondly, accessibility for people with mobility disabilities, including seniors who may have those disabilities. It's reasonable to expect and even to hope for senior citizens coming down to this project to run and to attend events at the community center. For those with restricted mobility, how will they get to and from the building if they're driving or being driven? Third, related to that, what happens with rideshare? We failed to deal with this question with Center City, with the Hub, and with the Abbot. With Hub 2, we started asking about rideshare issues, and I think that was a really good idea. It's late in the game for us to be asking this question of developments in our city. Is the plan to just have drivers pull over in the bike lane on Albert or to pull over on Abbott Road and to block these roads? Fourth, how will truck deliveries besides trash be handled? Where are the armored trucks going to be parking? Where are the FedEx drivers parking? Is the plan to just use the bike lane as is happening on Albert Avenue now on the south side where the Center City project is? If that's the case, might there be a way to have a better system where there's designated parking for delivery vehicles? And finally, the north wall is set to be a 7-story windowless brick wall, and there is no plan for art on it. This approach is not required by the code. They could put windows there. The property next door might indeed build and build high, but when? Recall how long it has taken to redevelop a lot of the properties in East Lansing, and note that we may be seeing a slowing economy. Greeting people southbound on Albert Avenue with a very big, on Abbott Road with a very big brick wall is going to be something that citizens are going to be asking, what were we thinking? Note that this has not been rendered for you, and I think there's a good reason it hasn't been rendered. Finally, on a separate issue, on the issue of SUPs for alcohol, I'm a huge fan of Campbell's. I go there frequently, and I'm very excited that they've started carrying good wine, local beer, and hard cider, but they don't have an SUP. If we're going to be in the practice of dealing with these SUPs after the fact, as with Marathon, Target, and apparently now Campbell's, and they always seem to be approved, why don't we recommend the council just eliminate the requirement and save these businesses the expense and the trouble, and save the Planning Commission, the DDA, and the council the trouble? It seems like we're willing to let the Liquor Control Commission deal with these problems, and that may make sense. That's what we've done with Harper's, where East Lansing has let the Liquor Control Commission and the County Health Department deal with the issues there. So it might be time to recommend to council that we just get rid of that approach to SUP. I'm not suggesting we do that with bars, but with places that are selling alcohol, we never seem to say no, and I'm not saying we should say no. And we seem to allow lots of places to just send in the paperwork after the fact, but that still causes them a lot of trouble. And for a business like Campbell's, it is a significant amount of paperwork and trouble. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hayward, will you continue with the initialized attendees?
Yep.
Many
So
are applicants, but
yep, thank you. So the remaining callers in our queue are, it looks like, largely related to the MSU FCU project, but there are a few names. Forgive me if I don't recognize them.
nor I.
Kevin Kalmbach. Is that, Kevin, you're unmuted. Are you a representative of the MSU FCU project?
This is Kevin. I am with Kebs.
Okay, great, thank you. And the other name that I don't recognize is Mike McGill. Mike, you are unmuted and able to address the Planning Commission. For some reason, I can't.
Okay,
There we go.
I'm here for this. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay, I'm here for the special use permit for Walgreens, representing Walgreens.
great. Would you like to reserve your comments for that public hearing?
Yes.
All right, thank you. The other name, Rana Sala, you are unmuted and can address the Planning Commission.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Oh, I'm with Walgreens.
okay. The next name I have is Richard Snyder. Or Steiner, excuse me.
I am with Walgreens in-house counsel.
Great, thank you. That is everyone on our list. The remaining callers are representatives of the Michigan State Federal Credit Union. Mr. Chair, would you like me to unmute the three of them to ask them if they'd like to make comment now or reserve comments?
Sure. Thank you.
Next caller is David Medford.
Hello. I would like to allow one of our other representatives, Ms. Bodell, to address those comments if she feels appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, hello. Are we referring to Alice's comments?
Why don't we, unless you had specific comments to make, say prior to the questions were raised, why don't we wait until that comes up on our agenda? You'll certainly be given the opportunity to discuss those things further down. I think that Mr. Haywood is just being careful to make sure that all of the people on our list are covered. There will be ample opportunity to talk about that under old business.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Absolutely, thank you.
All right, thank you. And our last caller is Kathy Buck.
Good evening. I'm just here as part of the MSU FCU team.
Great, thank you. That is all of our callers today.
Thank you. I should note that we did receive the text of Ms. Cook's comments as part of our written communications as well, and that was included in our packet. So if we have no other further communications from citizens, that'll move us on to our only public hearing for the night. This is item 6.1, a site plan and special use permit. This is an application from Walgreens Co. for the property at 100 West Grand River to allow for a new Walgreens retail store and pharmacy, pursuing a liquor license for the sale of packaged beer and wine. Ms. Schmidt.
Thank you. The Walgreens retail store is applying for a special use permit to sell beer and wine on the first floor of the mixed-use building known as the Abbot. The Abbot is an 11-story building with 2 levels of parking. It is currently under construction on the corner of Abbot and Grand River. The first floor consists of commercial tenant space, and the upper floors consist of parking and residential units for students. The proposed Walgreen covers over 7,641 gross square feet of commercial tenant space in the first floor of the building. They're proposing to set aside 10% of the building to place the beer and wine. They are currently applying for a liquor license with the state of Michigan. They expect to have a total of 20 employees, and operation hours are planned to be between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. Fire, police, and the People's Church have all reviewed the proposal and have no concerns at this time. And I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Ms. Schmidt from the commission? Commissioner Wolf, please.
Yeah, I noticed the staff report is just a little bit ambiguous about this, and I thought I'd bring it up just to make sure we know what Walgreens is doing. It says a couple times it refers to a liquor license, but also says it's for the sale of packaged beer and wine. I guess I'd like to hear from them that beer and wine is what they are applying for and what they intend to sell. Because if they want to sell liquor, it would require an additional special use permit, would it not?
No, it would just require a special use permit for either or. But if they wanted, they're only asking for beer and wine now. If they wanted to come back, they would have to apply for a different license. You're correct.
Okay, so it's clear that the one we are approving is not for liquor, it is for beer and wine.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Schmidt?
Yeah.
Commissioner Kusler?
Yeah, thank you. So, and this is actually maybe a bigger question. It actually goes back to some of the comments Ms. Drager made. I sat on the DDA for a long time, and I do remember these things coming up. And I guess I'm just curious to her point about them necessitating an SUP. If this really is the way that it's normally done, is this a level of red tape we can cut out? Because I think we run into a lot of red tape, and we've gotten feedback from our developer partners and for people looking to do business in the city or expand business in the city that they've, quote, run into red tape. This seems, if evidence is true, and this is something that we just typically just throw through, maybe this is something that we look at a little deeper moving forward. I don't know.
Commissioner Wolf?
Yeah, I'll certainly speak in favor of that. I've said this earlier when we talked about the target application. I feel pretty strongly that this should appear on the city's agenda at some point. The sooner the better to discuss this issue and see if we can eliminate this special use permit requirement.
Okay, any other questions for Ms. Schmidt? All right, then I'll invite the applicant or the applicants to come forward, and if they'd like to add anything to that, to Ms. Schmidt's comments, and take questions from the commission. Mr. Haywood, could you unmute, or I'm sorry, but it looks like the 3 people are still in attendance here, Mr. McGill, Ms. Sala, and Mr. Steiner, I believe.
Okay.
I'm sorry, ready for the public hearing on this.
Okay. Can you hear me? No.
Mr. McGill, you're unmuted and can speak.
Okay. I'll speak for all of us.
I'm sorry, Mr. McGill, we're having a difficulty understanding you.
I don't know what to do. Let me turn my volume.
Could I step in for just a second, Mr. Haywood?
Sure.
Mr. McGill, if I could ask you to hold your comments or make corrections as necessary. I'm reminded of Dr. Drager's comment about the phone number, the access code not being as part of the agenda. In as much as this is a public hearing and we'll presumably want to take comments from the public, I'm afraid I don't have that number at my fingertips. Do you or Ms. Urdialis or Ms. Schmidt? Could you help
Dan,
us
I
out
sent
with that?
I sent you an email that includes that information.
I'm quite certain that you did.
I did like 10 minutes ago.
That's terrific. Actually, it would be if you'd be so kind as to send me a text to my phone number. I'm working on a very small screen right now and don't know that I could easily get my email without dropping the Zoom link.
How about if I just read it?
Yes, please do.
To speak at public comment, call 312-626-6799 and enter the meeting ID number 827-2653-7691. There also is a toll-free number, 888-788-0099.
Thank you, Ms. Urdialis. I do see that the email has arrived and I stepped away for a moment and was able to find it, but appreciate your stepping in for me. I'll once again invite the applicants to come forward and to add anything they wish to the staff report and to take questions from the commission.
Can you guys hear me now?
It's still a little broken up, Mr. McGill.
Well, if I can answer the question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're just not able to hear you. Do you have another representative that maybe we can move on to Ms. Salah? You are unmuted and able to speak. Ms. Salah, you are unmuted and able to speak if you'd like to address planning commission.
Sorry, I don't have any comments.
Thank you. Mr. Steiner, you are unmuted and able to address planning commission.
I have no comments. Thank you.
Mr. Haywood, can I ask if we try Mr. McGill one more time? I got the sense that he's potentially he was intending to make a presentation. I do have some questions for the applicant as well. So if they need to be taken down and then addressed at a later date at our next meeting, then that's fine too. But I'd like to get that before them if possible tonight.
Sure. All right, Mr. McGill, you are unmuted and able to speak again.
Can you guys hear me now?
Mr. McGill, I'm going to ask you to hold off one more time. I recall this happened in a previous meeting where a speaker was trying to make a comment and they were listening through, I believe, their computer. And so much like when you call into a radio program, there's that sort of delay, and perhaps that's what we're witnessing now. I'm afraid that I don't remember what the solution was. I think it was to ask the applicant to turn their computer speaker down, though in this case, it looks to me like Mr. McGill might be working through a telephone. But if that's not the case, it's sort of if you're listening through your phone and on a computer, we'll ask that you turn your radio down, you turn your computer down, and then see if the feedback and the delay aren't resolved.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I might try to promote him to a panelist to see if
Please.
that.
Yep.
if that-
I will tell you, Mr. McGill, that we did hear a sort of feedback and repeat, which would seem to be indicative of this sort of, I don't know, loop of your comments.
So you've been promoted to a panelist and you've been unmuted. Let's try that again, Mr. McGill.
Let me.
No, that didn't seem to work.
I did ask at the top of the meeting for our collective patience in dealing with this sort of thing. I will ask Mr. McGill and Ms. Sala and Mr. Steiner to stick close, allowing for the fact that we did receive your application and that which was included in our packet. I'm going to ask for questions from the commission and then ask for public comment. And then we'll see where that leads. Mr. Haywood.
Sorry to interrupt, but there were 3 representatives from Walgreens, is that right? So that was.
Correct. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome.
You did it. Nice job.
So why don't we get the questions before I get disconnected or something happens again?
Please, let's trust that you're going to stick with us. If you have anything to add to the staff report, please, and then we'll take questions.
I have nothing to add to the staff report.
Even better. Questions from the commission for Mr. McGill and his team. All right, I guess I'll go first then, or maybe perhaps only. Given that this is in our B3 district and we're trying to encourage a certain amount of walkability, I took a look at the interior elevations that show the layout of some of the cabinets, and I noticed that in a couple of instances, details 4 and 10 on sheet, I think it's I-211, would indicate that the exterior, the windows that are the storefront windows along Abbot are intended to be blocked by the back of some cabinets. And I want to confirm that that's the case.
Back by the pharmacy, a little bit of the windows will be blocked off for the pharmacy. I don't know how much it is, about 12 feet past the pharmacy, or there's going to be decals on the windows. But
I'm talking about that. This is a separate section, Mr. McGill. So indeed, the area where you're talking about in the pharmacy looks like there was film placed on the windows so as to obscure, probably for a certain amount of privacy that you'll require there or security.
Right.
I'm working off of 2 different devices here, but if you take a look at details 4 and 10 on each sheet, I presume it's I-211. There's a couple of places where it looks to me as if there's shelves that are going to be placed against an exterior window, and I just want to confirm that that is or is not the case.
There is going to be some shelving against the windows, but not the whole thing. I think back towards the pharmacy, there's some Kendall against the windows, but I don't know exactly without looking at the plan how many feet.
Or am I asking for sort of specifics? I guess ultimately what I would like to see in at a future meeting or with some detail provided perhaps for staff is how the back of those cabinets are going to be treated. Appreciating that you've avoided your main entrance along Grand River and you've got only a few select spots along Abbot where these shelves are going to be placed. I'm just concerned that it doesn't actually look like it's the back of a shelf that's been pushed up against the back of a window.
There'll be decals on the windows to where the shelving is.
Okay, then I guess I'd like some.
So, yeah, I can send you the branding packet that has those, that look of that, the decals that go on the window.
Sure. I only bring this up is because the similar situation came up in a different, it's a different zone, and so the requirements for window transparency are different. But I think that the need to maintain that pedestrian connection to the interior is vital regardless. At that particular circumstance, we actually asked the in this case was an architect, to go back to their boards and to see if they couldn't find a way to accommodate all the storage that they needed, while at the same time providing maximum transparency into the interior of the shop. And I note that by saying that I don't recall seeing a floor plan that indicated the your cabinet layout, but for where I saw it in interior elevations rather than a floor plan. It's a concern. I don't know that it's a deal breaker, certainly not for me, but I do want to be mindful of the fact that we want to sort of not treat the exterior like it's the back of house.
Correct. And they did want more. That this is a pushback from where they started. We opened more windows up than originally was planned for. So to give you that onus.
Just looking for some clarification.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. That being the case, I'll open up the public hearing for this application. Mr. Haywood, if you would invite our attendees to make a comment or to raise comments or questions to the commission or to the applicant. You're muted, Mr. Haywood.
Excuse me, sorry. Okay, so caller with the last three digits 058, you are unmuted and can address the Planning Commission.
Pass.
Caller with the last three digits 227, you are unmuted and can address the Planning Commission.
Pass.
Okay, caller with the last three digits 409, you are unmuted and can address Planning Commission.
Pass.
All right, caller with the last three digits 927, you are unmuted and can address Planning Commission.
Pass.
Caller with the last three digits 963, you are unmuted and can address the Planning Commission.
Hi, Alice Dreger again. I appreciate Chairman Bowman's concerns about windows and the idea of walkability and feeling like open spaces, but it strikes me again, this is just a weird thing to do when we're basically addressing a question of alcohol sales. There are lots of stores that don't sell alcohol that might very well present to us the same problem, like back of cabinetry presented at the windows, creating a sort of feeling of a closed space when it should feel like an open space. But it seems logical we would deal with this in urban design guidelines and other things in the code, perhaps form-based code, to deal with the issue of backs of cabinetry through the opportunity of an alcohol SCP is just weird. And I'm not saying you're wrong to try to do this, Dan, because I think this is a last chance to sort of fix this problem, and I respect the idea of taking the opportunity. But at the same time, East Lansing's code approach is just, it sometimes feels to me like it just keeps getting stranger. And I know you guys, three of you, worked very hard on the form-based code, and tragically that isn't going anywhere at the moment. But we really need to start thinking about ways to make our code less frustrating to both us in terms of dealing with things like backs of cabinets through alcohol SUPs, and to the people who are bringing business forward. I'm particularly concerned not about Walgreens, because Walgreens has lots of money to pay lots of lawyers. I'm concerned about places like Campbell's, and places like Mackerel Sky, and places like, other small businesses. Anyway, thank you very much. You can turn me off, David.
All right, thank you. Our next caller is David Medford. You are unmuted and can address City Planning Commission.
Yes.
Thank you. The next caller is Aaron Bodell. You are unmuted and can address Planning Commission.
Pass.
Thank you. The next caller is Kathy Buck. You are unmuted and can address Planning Commission.
Pass. Pass.
Thank you. The next caller is Kevin Kalmbach. You are unmuted and can address Planning Commission.
I pass. Pass.
Thank you. The next caller is Rana Salah. You are unmuted and can address the Planning Commission.
Pass.
Thank you. The next caller is Richard Steiner. You are now unmuted and can address the Planning Commission.
Pass.
Thank you. Next caller is Jeff Keyes. You are now unmuted and can address the Planning Commission. Just will not unmute.
Pass.
Thank you. And we have one other caller with the last three digits 064. You are now unmuted and can address the Planning Commission. Caller with the last three digits 064. You are unmuted and can address the Planning Commission. One last time, caller with the last three digits 064. You are unmuted and can address the Planning Commission. All right, I think we're not going to get anything out of them. So our last caller on our list is Rose Hilbert. You are unmuted and can address the Planning Commission.
I pass.
Thank you. That is all of the attendees on our caller list. Chairperson, you are muted still.
Thank you. With that, we will close the public hearing on this matter. And thank you. And return it to the commission for questions for either staff or for the applicants. Commissioner Cahill.
Mr. Cahill, you are muted.
Okay. I would like to hear from staff on the issue that Commissioner Bowman raised regarding the transparency of the windows and the placement of shelving near the windows.
As far as what can be done about that is with
Yeah.
the code. Yeah, right now we do.
Well, I mean, as far as, is this in compliance? I know we're in a different district than we were when we were dealing with the 7-Eleven. And I hadn't really thought about this issue until Commissioner Bowman brought it up. Are there requirements that we have here?
There are not in the zoning district, and hopefully they will be addressed with part of the form-based code.
Okay.
Mr. Haywood.
Just to add to that, usually how you would, because it's a special use permit, you do have discretionary standards that go a little bit above the black and white code requirements. And Ms. Schmidt's correct that we don't have a black and white code requirement for internal furnishings blocking a window, right? So what I'm getting at is that you do have the power to apply discretionary standards to a use like this, except they have to be clearly related to the alcohol issue. So if there was some way or some reason that the shelving was related to that, you'd have to make a common connection. So you could regulate it, but it would have to be a very clear connection to that. And, you know, kind of in my review of this, I don't really see that connection, but I do see the concern about just the aesthetic nature of it, but from a clear connection to the concern about the alcohol sales, I'm not sure I see that connection, but that's just my opinion.
For what it's worth, Commissioner Kusler, sorry, please.
The one thing I just wanted to point out, similar, the CVS that's right there on the corner of MAC, they've got decals up and down the windows, I think. And I think those windows are maybe blocked out by registers, but by something. There isn't that. There's something there, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know the specific instance, but I think I do recall seeing this very scenario there where there are cabinetry or something, internal furnishings that are visible in the window.
Yeah.
With regard to decals, we have to be careful there because if it's signage, that's a different category. So there are specific regulations that are kind of black and white code requirements for how much of the window can be obscured with signage. So that would be kind of a different issue that we would regulate separately.
I was just going to suggest, I raised the issue just to, it sounded to me that if, I suspect that staff has already flagged this, and it sounds to me like the applicant has already got a plan in place. I was simply asking the question because I wanted some clarity about that, you know, indeed, we're not talking about constructing some, I don't know, plywood shelves and leaving the unpainted side facing the window, that if they're window decals or if there are, you know, if the back of the cabinet is laminated or something like that. With all appreciation to Dr. Drager's comment about, you know, is this really the minutia we should be dealing with at this level when we're really talking about an alcohol permit? It's just one of those things that I'm mindful of, that because we don't have the same regulations that we had in the East Village, now would be the time to raise that point. And so again, it sounds to me like staff or the applicant is aware of that, and moving forward, that will be either made available to us or to City Council before it proceeds through them. Any other Commissioner Wolf?
In regards to the CVS, I wanted to say that when that went in 20 years ago, I guess it was the first business in East Lansing that most of us were aware of that had that many windows and started that practice of covering them up with their shelving. And we saw how unattractive that was, and many in the community reacted badly to it. And that is one of the reasons that the East Village Code has transparency requirements in it, and why we have that in our draft form-based code as well. So we certainly should not look at that as a predecessor that we want to allow in the future. They did get away with it this far, but most of us do not care for it.
Commissioner Cahill.
Yeah, I think this case brings up the point that since we don't have that same type of regulation that we did for where the 7-Eleven went in, we should have that type of regulation because this is a building right across from one of the premier universities in the country, in the world, and we might have the building that's interfacing with it having shelving in its windows, and that's a terrible look for East Lansing, and it's something that we should be looking at immediately, I think, to address. city council should be looking at.
Yeah.
Can I say something, guys?
Mr. McGill, please, and then Ms. Williams.
Okay. 80% of the windows are not are open windows. We're only talking that 20% are obscured. So
Thank
sorry.
you. No, you're fine, and I appreciate that. And again, I also appreciate that you kept them away from the sort of your primary Grand River elevation. So Commissioner Williams, please.
Well, I agree that having this discussion while we're talking about the special use permit is odd. So I'm hoping that maybe there's some way we can flag this for council, assuming that we move this forward. But I'm also really disappointed that we're having this conversation about shelving in front of windows and transparency after all the time we've spent discussing this in the form-based code committee, despite the fact that it's stalled because of COVID. I think we would have moved that much further along, but for the situation that we're all in. So I guess I just have a question for staff about whether or not these decals or stickers or whatever we're talking about on the windows that might obscure this open shelving, are those, if you even know, are those in compliance with the sign ordinance?
It depends on what their cover is, and we'll handle that during the time that they'll have to provide us with details on that. The sign code, Jake Parcell will review it and make sure that they have the correct percentage of coverage with the sign portion of it. Sometimes they're sign related, sometimes they're tinted.
So as a follow-up, when will that occur?
That will occur at the time of building permit application.
I appreciate that we don't want to really believe this. There's no reason why this couldn't be addressed at our next meeting. In as much as the specifics about the content of the sign or not sign would be available much later, there's no reason why we couldn't make a request of the applicant to provide that information at our next meeting as old business rather than as a public hearing.
I guess I just worry if we're delaying this request here for something that doesn't have to do with this request. So that said, I move that we suspend the rules and act on this tonight.
There's a motion that we suspend, that the commission suspends the rules and acts on the matter in front of us this evening. Is there a second? I'm not seeing a hand. I'll ask one more time. Is there a second to that motion? Okay, we do need a second to proceed. So that motion fails without a second. That being the case, I'll ask one final time. Is there any concerns or questions to be raised for requests made of staff or questions that we pose to the applicant before we move on our agenda? All right, seeing no hands, I will, Mr. Haywood.
Maybe we can do just a quick summary of what we would like staff to pursue between now and at this point. I'm hearing concerns about it being an obstruction, but what would you like from us to bring back?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no obligation for the commission to act on this matter at this. I mean, the suspension of the rules is a courtesy that we would extend if we feel it's appropriate, if I'm not mistaken. I don't see it as an obstruction. I mean, I think I made it pretty clear that the information that I'd like to see, even if it's not absolutely final, again, just some better information about it. It seemed to me that Mr. McGill had suggested that there would be some film placed on the windows, perhaps, but perhaps it's something that's going to be on the back of the cabinets. Again, sort of digging into the minutia here, it seems somewhat absurd, but given the state we're in and the fact that this is a pretty important corner, and I'd like to see it treated appropriately. I think it's clear about what their solution is to how to address this condition that's arisen from the way that the space is laid out. Is that clear enough for staff? And I see Vice Chair Boyle's hand up.
Yeah,
Vice Chair,
I think this is the time to get those questions resolved. And it seemed to me that the developer was perfectly willing to provide that information for our next meeting on this, our next meeting regarding this particular special use permit. So I think what I heard the chair requesting was information regarding what the shelving was going to be where it's near the windows and whether it's going to block the visibility lines from the outside, which I think is a good issue that was brought up. And this is our opportunity to have this be the best it can be, given the fact that we haven't been able to finalize our form-based code right now because of COVID and budgetary circumstances. So I think that's the information that we're requesting. So it's really from the applicant as much as it is from staff. And also, since the issue of decals was raised, some more information about that would certainly be helpful to me. So
okay, that's helpful. I appreciate that. And sorry if I didn't hear that the first time. Thank you.
thank you for asking for the clarification. I'll ask if there is any more comments from commission regarding this item. Okay, seeing none, then we'll see this at a future meeting and move us on to our first item of old business. The site plan and special use permit, an application from Neumann Smith Architecture for the property at the northwest corner of Abbot Road and Albert Avenue, called City Parking Lot Number 4, to construct a 7-story office building, including an MSU FCU branch credit union, community space, general office space, leasable tenant spaces, related support and services, and related site work. Is this Ms. Schmidt again?
Yes, thank you. As you had mentioned, the proposed building is 104 feet, 8 inches, 7 stories with 87,822 gross square feet of space. It will be owned by Michigan State University Federal Credit Union. Included in the building is an office branch, community space, general office space, leasable tenant space, and support and service spaces. The building hours of operation are proposed from Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 11:59 p.m., Saturday, 6 a.m. from 11:59 p.m. and closed on Sunday. There's no on-site parking proposed or required for the project. Parking for the proposed development can be handled in the municipal parking system, and included in your packet is a parking analysis and a map that shows where all the parking facilities are and how many parking are available. Based on the traffic impact statement, the city engineer has determined that the applicant will not be required to do a traffic study. However, there are some requests from the Transportation Commission. Their recommendations are westbound Albert traffic should be considered for no turn on red, and the displaced parking from the east exit Dublin Square parking lot should be included, and assessing and distributing across the 3 parking structures that they have proposed for their parking. These 31 spaces have been included in your analysis as well, so those will be taken out. After the review from the fire, police, building, and engineering, there were no major concerns with the proposed development being able to be accommodated by the city's services. The adjacent property at 314 Evergreen to the west is zoned RM32 City Center Multiple Family Residential District, and therefore qualifies as a residential property. One of the circumstances with this project is they will have to request a variance because approximately 40 feet 8 inches of the proposed building sits above the base height of 64 feet. The proposed building is 21 feet from the east property line of the adjacent parcel to the west. Therefore, the portion of the building above the base height must be set back easterly 19 feet 8 inches. The applicant is aware of this and has applied for a variance for that situation. The DDA viewed the proposal at the July 23rd, 2020 meeting, and the DDA's recommendation is in favor of the project, and they do not have concerns about the proposed variance being requested. The Planning Commission requested additional information on the development in the downtown, the building and the ground coverage bonuses and how they reflect to the bonus requirements. Staff provided examples of several buildings. It's included in a chart as well as photographs or plans that show the different spaces. There is one condition that staff realized should be added to the plan, or a 16th condition. This is covering the proposed variance that the applicant has applied for. A variance is granted from section 50-94B5A2 of the zoning code to allow 104-foot 8-inch 7-story office building to be 21 feet from the property line without the 19 feet 8 inches set back at the base level of 64 feet. We recommend that that be added as a 16th condition if you choose to make a recommendation this evening. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Ms. Schmidt? Bear with me while I adjust my, so I can see all your faces, frankly. Okay, I think I can see everybody now. Thanks for bearing with me. And are there any questions for Ms. Schmidt? I have one question for clarification. So appreciating the information you pulled together regarding the building coverage and allowable, expansion from the base numbers. The residence building, I was entirely unaware that had an indoor space that served as to offset the building, the lot coverage. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So,
Originally, they had started out with a patio on the side of the building and decided that for more year-round purposes, that would be better to have the roll-up window with the screens so that there's kind of an indoor-outdoor feeling. So when it's raining, you also have the outdoor feeling, but you can still be protected from the rain. That was approved as part of the bonus requirement.
so for clarification, that's actually on an upper floor, is it not?
No, that is on the first level.
I have no idea where that is. I mean, I know where the building is. I have no idea where is that available for public use, like the one that's?
Yes, it's right beside the bar area. You actually walk by it going to the Grove Street ramp. It doesn't go down to the ground. It's table height.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Schmidt? Mr. Wolf, Commissioner Wolf.
Yes, one small correction in the staff report. On page 12 of the staff report, which has the table showing the comparison of the different buildings as you were just speaking about.
Yes.
In the last line for proposed MSU FCU, the next to last column shows 37,000 square feet for the amenity provided. I believe that should actually be 12,000 square feet. The 37,000 is the amount of extra coverage they earn for that.
Thank you. I'll correct that.
Thanks.
Other questions for Ms. Schmidt? I'm not seeing any hands, and so I will invite I believe that the applicant had some comments to make regarding some public comment prior, and then perhaps take additional questions from the commission if you would.
Yes, this is David Mefford. If it pleases the commission, I can address Mrs. Drager's comments as expressed earlier during this hearing, specifically in relation to the north wall, basically which fronts a common lot line between the MSU-FCU proposed development and Dublin Square to the north. We recognize first and foremost that the site itself is extremely small and compact at less than a third of an acre. And in doing so, fitting all the key components into a building that's more than 100 feet tall and 7 stories is a rather difficult task. In more or less orienting and looking at the overall site configuration, you have very visible fronts on Abbot Road and Albert Avenue. So we chose to line the key building components, a lot of the mechanical data closets, firefighter command center, egress stairs, the vertical transportation, the passenger elevators and service elevators along that north wall in order to maximize the visibility on the primary public streets of Abbot Road and Albert Avenue. All of those key components that are really oriented along that common lot line, if they were to be displaced or pushed deeper into the project, it would certainly impact the amount of visibility this project has, or transparency between the public realm on those two adjacent streets. Furthermore, as the overall building functions in relation to the primary service coming off the alley to the west, we tried to find any efficiencies we could in order to make this project feasible on this very tight site and make it function the way it will need to function for MSU to occupy it. Also of consideration, there are, really code considerations as well. Because that is on a common lot line, any development, whether it's currently existing or will exist in the future, needs to have a level of separation from a fire standpoint, and not placing openings into that wall, helps us, immediately, and then potentially with other developments down the road. Furthermore, if another tall development does occur on currently the Dublin Square site, the ability to maintain that north wall of the property would possibly be compromised. And so if there were windows, we couldn't maintain those windows. Also, the exterior kind of materiality of the building, it needs to be robust to the point where it's going to invest a very long time, as we wouldn't have access to it normally. So the brick masonry as it's currently shown, is a very durable material. Spoke about the opportunity to have art on that wall, which I'll let Ms. Bodell address further. But, there are a myriad of reasons, and we feel that the solutions that we arrived at really speak to the best interests of the project as it relates to integrating to the overall downtown core.
Questions for Mr. Mefford regarding that particular point? And then Mr. Haywood?
So with regard to that common wall, it's my understanding that the building code would also prohibit windows when it's a zero lot wall. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So just by the sheer fact of having that wall at that line, you're not permitted to have windows by building code.
Correct.
Just by way of a reminder, we have not a dissimilar situation at the 200 block of Grand River. I'm forgetting the name of the building. City Center building, where there are windows up in upper stories, but that they are part of sort of an interior, what potentially could be an interior alcove or interior light shaft. So indeed, the building, the windows that face to the east and to the west are actually drawn back from the property line at both of those locations. And so, as Mr. Haywood has said and Mr. Mefford has confirmed, there is a way to do it, but it would require the reduction of the footprint of the building in order to allow that, again, that future light shaft, light well to be constructed. Other question, and Mr. Mefford, did you have anything you wanted to add to that, or were there other items on the from Dr. Drager's list that you wanted to address, or was that it?
Well, as it relates to certainly, servicing the building, we've worked within the within the zoning ordinance and what's specified, as I noted, and we're all aware, there's a 16.5-foot wide alley on the west side of the building, which we're utilizing as the main point of servicing for trash and any deliveries. We've actually recessed the building in a distance in order to provide a 10-foot wide loading zone as required, and then also maintaining 10-foot clear within the alley for continued traffic. So to that end, FedEx and so forth and so on, we feel that we're addressing the intent of the zoning ordinance and the overall function of the building as it relates for this project and also in context of the surrounding parcels as well.
Thank you. If you had nothing, did you have anything else, Mr. Mefford? I don't want to cut your time short. Okay.
Not at this time.
Ms. Bodell, excuse me, Commissioner Wolf.
Yeah, a question for Mr. Mefford. On that north wall, did you discuss or consider any other sort of treatment, perhaps using different colors of bricks or some sort of a pattern or something to break it up from being just one solid wall of the same color of brick?
There's kind of two parts to this. The idea of a public art element was always expressed as an idea for that north wall. But also, and this is a little bit of a nuanced point as the site plan approval documents are at a schematic level, but from a constructability standpoint, those walls are actually precast concrete panels that have brick embedded in them. And that's for really the urban context and the constructability to make construction as quick and as efficient as possible. Again, I think starting to address Dr. Drager's comments earlier, nobody wants to impede the downtown traffic movements more than absolutely necessary. So there is a level of additional detail that will occur there as these concrete panels embedded with brick. It's going to look, it's a brick wall. It just has concrete backup, which helps to work with that fire rating that is required. But there is another level of detail, so there will be a little bit more information in terms of detailing at floor lines, but we're currently working through with those consultants to understand exactly what that looks like.
All right. I also have a question about the alley and the screening. I'm disappointed and surprised at this. I guess we had a lack of communication about what our screening requirements are. Our screening requirements really do expect the equipment of that type to not be visible, that it should have a physical wall or screening of some kind in front of it. And the memo that we have about it now says that there's not enough space for that. And I'm just wondering, how did this happen? I mean, it should only need a couple extra feet. Why was that not taken into account when this was designed so there's enough room to screen it according to our requirements?
Well, Commissioner Wolf, yeah, the schematic level documents that we're reviewing, we tucked those elements we basically carved away the architecture of the building as much as we could, again, under the understanding that it's an extremely tight site and this building is extremely compact in terms of fitting all the various programmatic elements into the ground floor. So we've pulled those elements. There's a transformer and there's also a termination cabinet as far into that alcove as possible. And those two pieces of equipment are entirely encompassed within the building footprint above. The building actually cantilevers over it. So in terms of the exposure on the west end, we could provide some level of screening, but it would be at the compromising of the ability to access basically the service area of the building as we've kind of defined it there on the alley. So it's a trade-off. We didn't want to, compromise and have the ability for, say, trash to kind of access that west end of the building if it has to come around with its additional equipment, to kind of fully contain the west side of that transformer. And quite frankly, it's going to look like a fence that's just, sticking out on the alley itself. We felt strongly that by enclosing 3 of the 4 sides that we were working very much towards the intent in terms of the overall function of the building in conjunction with the other parcels. But if that is a concern, we can certainly work to address that further.
Yeah, I understood all of that. All of that's really in the memo, but I'm still having trouble understanding how we got to this point. How much additional space would the screening require? It says in the memo that it would reduce the 10-foot wide loading zone space, making it more difficult to get through there. But how much would it actually add to it?
I mean, it would reduce it by multiple feet. I can't give you an answer here right now, but it's just an extremely tight consideration. Again, it's the urban context and really trying to make sure that, you know, that 10-foot clear path is maintained for other vehicles, emergency or other, within the alley itself.
Yes, I mean, we certainly want to keep the alley as usable as possible, but we're also trying to improve the appearance of our alleys and the other public faces of the building. So I really would hope that there is a way to get the type of screening that we need in that location.
Other questions for Mr. Mefford? I suppose it probably, I ought to weigh in, is I actually felt that the arguments that were made in support of the current layout were convincing to me, one person, largely because it was supported by your assertion that the equipment itself isn't likely to be at all noisy unless it's malfunctioning, which obviously is not an ideal situation. That it is indeed set back into the face of the building, and that in order to provide necessary access around it, it seems to me like a reasonable. I get whether or not that, you know, that's a standard that's permitted to be broken, I couldn't say, but that I felt that the justification that was provided by Neumann Smith, again, for one person, for me, it was convincing.
If I could just speak to that briefly, I mean, I appreciate the considerations made here, and you know, to that end, I just would like to emphasize for Commissioner Wolf, you know, we designed the building around that equipment, and that equipment would also essentially support, you know, I think some of the other potential properties in the vicinity. So I feel like we went pretty far to try to incorporate that into the overall design in a way that would be aesthetically appealing and really not be an eyesore for the downtown core.
Yeah, I will acknowledge that it's good that you recessed it into the building. That was an excellent first move, but I still feel it doesn't go quite far enough. I differ with Chairman Bowman on that.
And fair enough. Ms. Buck, I saw your hand up. I just wanted to clarify what I find most irritating when I see this, this particular detail omitted is when it's, you know, sort of placed on the top of a 4 or 5 story building and the equipment is brought right to the parapet, right? And that there's no attempt whatsoever to try to screen what is obviously mechanical equipment. And again, we can certainly agree to disagree here. But again, I do find it, there are places where it's just so awful, frankly. And I'm not feeling that case here. Ms. Buck?
I just, if it please the council, I just wanted to also comment that requirements by the Lansing Board of Water and Light for maintenance clearance requirements in front of the transformer to maintain it require that they have at least a minimum of 8 feet clear. So anything that would be placed there would have to be done in such a manner that if they needed to access it at any time, that they would be able to have that clearance. So that's yet another caveat that needs to be taken into consideration. That was all.
Just to clarify, you're saying it's not just the sort of the thickness of a wall, but the thickness of the wall and the fact that that wall needs to be placed up to 8 feet away from the.
Or in such a way that when it's open, that there is that 8 foot clearance. And when you're talking about an alley that's 16 foot 6 inches wide, the fact that we've recessed or pushed back the face of our building the 4 feet to achieve that 20 feet, and then, you know, potentially needing to accommodate then some sort of structure or closure, then is kind of defeating the ability to maintain those clearances and access and maintainability.
Thank you.
That's all.
Other questions for the applicant regarding this issue? We can always come back to it. I know Ms. Bodell had some questions, some things she wanted to talk about, so I'm eager to hear what she has to say if there are no any more specific questions. Or I'm presuming Ms. Bodell had some things. It seemed to me that you wanted to talk earlier, and I'll give you the mic now. Thank you.
Sure. I'm sorry that I jumped in earlier. I just wanted to go back to the north wall. I think Dave did a good job of summarizing where we are today, but I just wanted to mention we are interested in incorporating some public art on the wall. I think it's a decision that there's some risk to that decision. And we're in the process of soliciting some proposals for public art. And as part of that, we would potentially consider something on that north wall. Obviously, there is always the chance that a building could be built and that, that investment, doesn't yield long-term. So it is something that we're looking at. I did want to mention it tonight as well. And so that's where we are today, and just wanted to add that comment. And I think we covered most of the other comments. Please correct me if I'm wrong, or if you need any additional information on that.
Specifically regarding the wall, the north wall, that is?
Correct. I just wanted to clarify what we were hoping to do with public art, our public art component.
Thank you. Other questions for the applicant from the commission? I'll pick up and maybe these were addressed when I was shuffling papers and trying to find my way through my notes here, but that Dr. Drager had raised a couple of questions specifically, a couple of them, or actually three of them in particular, having to do with access, sort of accessibility by differently abled people to the building. As I understood her comments, to presumably to access the new public space, information about ride sharing, where are those pickups likely to happen? And to be fair, I don't know that that's necessarily your responsibility so much as ours. And then ultimately she had asked questions about truck delivery and armored cars and so on. So I think Mr. Mefford did mention something about deliveries in the alley, but I guess I'll leave those to the applicants to answer.
Sure. Dave, do you want to start with that, or do you want to, Dave Mefford?
Yes, I'm not going to start to address that. I mean, just to reiterate my earlier points regarding, really service-related deliveries. We have allocated a 10-foot wide loading zone off the alley as required by zoning, and pushed the building in to maintain that 10-foot wide path in the alley, as I noted. In terms of accessing, providing access to the site in terms of rideshare or along those means, we obviously did work closely with the city, and that was not expressed as a requirement in terms of having a drop-off zone in terms of the public right-of-way. So, again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but the site is extremely tight. So to change curb lines would be impossible in terms of having a lay-by or drop-off area within the site itself. But in terms of the surrounding context, the existing public infrastructure, is designed to meet the Americans with Disabilities Act. So again, given the urban context, there are a wide variety of opportunities within a distance of this site where, those opportunities to ride share or gain access in proximity do exist.
Thank you. And I actually did think, as I said, I thought I'd heard you mention about deliveries. As I try to sort of going through my notes and trying to get organized, or trying to get my thoughts together, I must have missed the specifics on that. Just be aware that the concern over ride sharing, I think, was driven by a large residential project that is currently still on the boards and still being reviewed by the Planning Commission, and that my guess is that the expectation is that use from a large residential structure would likely see a lot more traffic using Uber or Lyft or whatever. I don't presume to know specifics, but that, that the expectation is that somebody returning back to their residence is likely to, after having been out and about, there's likely to be a greater demand from the individuals that are making use of those residential units as opposed to potentially, I'll say, business or office users. Again, I don't have, that's entirely anecdotal, but the expectation, as you say, is that the sort of public infrastructure should be able to manage that reasonably so. I think that covered all the things that I had on my notes that Dr. Drager had raised, unless somebody took better notes than I did. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you to the applicant for your comments. Any other questions or comments for the applicant? I'm not seeing any hands, and so that will return this matter to the commission for your potential action.
This is Commissioner Cahill.
Thank you, Commissioner Cahill. I was, like you, probably looking through your staff report for the page of importance, so please proceed.
Exactly. I would move that in the matter of the request from Neumann Smith Architecture for site plan and special use permit approval for the property at the northwest corner of Abbot Road and Abbot Avenue, city parking lot number 4, to construct a 7-story office building, including an MSU-FCU branch credit union, community space, general office space, leasable tenant spaces, related support and service spaces, and related site work. We recommended to the City Council for approval, subject to 16 conditions. The 15 stated in the staff report. And Darcy, could you give me help with that 16th one you were talking about?
Yes, I sure can. The 16th states a variance is granted from section 50-94B5A2 of the zoning code to allow a 104-foot 8-inch 7-story office building 21 feet from the property line without the 19 feet 8 inches setback at the base level of 64 feet.
Thank you. So that would be the 16th condition.
Thank you for the motion. Is there a second?
Kusler, support.
Thank you. That's been moved by Commissioner Cahill and seconded by Commissioner Kusler to recommend approval of this application to the City Council with the 16 conditions listed. Is there any discussion on that motion? I'm seeing no hands, and so I'll call for a vote. Mr. Haywood, could we please have a roll call vote on this? Sorry, now I'm seeing a hand. Please hold off on your roll call vote, Mr. Haywood. Commissioner Wolf.
Yeah, I'm still unconvinced about the use of the meeting community conference room space to earn additional ground coverage on the site. And we're hearing over and over again about how tight the site is. And really what I'm getting from that is that the building is too large for the site. The relevant part of the code that earns extra ground coverage requires architectural or site design features which allow for public or private open space, free movement of pedestrian traffic, abundant light and air, and other related elements. And no matter how I look at it, I can't see that the community room meets any of those requirements. It's really not similar to other features that have been on other buildings. And given that this is new construction, I just don't see any reason for it not to meet our code as is, or provide the proper type of amenity. And I am very disappointed because I was looking forward to this. I'm a member of the credit union. I've been the member for almost 50 years. When I joined, they were in a little building on the south side of Trowbridge Road, across from Trowbridge Shopping Center, that probably no one else here has ever been in or even remembers as their headquarters. So I was really excited to see that they were coming into downtown East Lansing with an office building, which would be a boon to the city, something we have not had, but I just can't vote in favor of it because of the ground coverage.
Thank you, Commissioner Wolf. Any other discussion on this motion, Vice Chair Boyle?
Well, I'm going to be voting in favor of this. I think this is a challenging site to develop because of its size. And I think we certainly will get great benefit from having office building, a new office building downtown. I understand Commissioner Wolf's concern about the ground coverage, but if the area of the residences occupied by the Hopcat with the bulkhead doors, which is part of their restaurant, satisfied council in approving the residences, which were approved before I was on either this commission or council, then I think the community space that is available in the proposed credit union building is just as appropriate a benefit to the public and the downtown area as the residences has proved. And certainly if that was supported for approval, I see no reason not to support this for approval. I frequently use the credit union building on the corner of Farm Lane and Mount Hope, which has community space. And because I use it, I know that community space is frequently used. And not just by the credit union, but by other organizations. So I think having some community space available in the downtown area, downtown East Lansing, will be a great benefit to the community. And so I'm going to be voting in favor of this.
Thank you, Vice Chair Boyle. Any other discussion on the motion? Just a second, Commissioner Wolf, and just any other discussion on the motion? See if Commissioner Wolf would like to. Commissioner Cahill, we'll come back to you, Commissioner Wolf.
I would just say briefly, I'll be voting in favor of this for very much the same reasons that Commissioner Boyle just stated so well.
Thank you. Other discussion on the motion? Commissioner Wolf.
Yes, I have to admit I was a little surprised when I saw the Hopcat garage door as part of this, but I would point out that at least it is related to the items listed in the ordinance, one of which is abundant light and air. It does open their restaurant up to the outdoors and let in additional light. And the conference meeting room does not really do any of that. So this is much farther away than that is.
Other discussion on the motion? I'll add that I also find that the community space an unusual solution to, actually, I think a clever solution, if unusual, to the issue of providing a balance to the lot coverage requirement. I'm reminded of the way that the stage space within the old Bailey School, that's now the Bailey Community or Bailey lofts, I don't know, the apartment buildings, where I think that was, and maybe it never went through that way, but that was actually identified as a place in which that they would spend their public art money, making the stage in the old gymnasium or the old auditorium available for art displays, say plays or concerts and so on. I don't know that actually went through, and I don't know that it's ever actually been used, but I thought that it was a clever way of addressing a way that to use an otherwise a space that would probably have gone unused. And again, as I say, may have continued to go unused. I was also encouraged by the fact that this is not the first time that the credit union has offered this solution or this opportunity within their facilities, that indeed they have a policy by which this is addressed, and they've outlined specifically who's permitted to use it, who's not permitted to use it. So I'm very much encouraged by this as a potential solution to a pretty tricky problem. I'll be voting in favor of this motion as well. Any other discussion? Right now, Mr. Haywood, could we have a roll call vote?
Yes, Bowman,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Cahill,
Yes.
Chrysler,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
and Wolf.
No.
The yeses have it 6-1.
Thank you. So the motion passes. That will this will proceed to council for their final approval based on our recommendation, hopefully based on our recommendation. Thank you for your application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll move us on to item 7.2 of our next item of old business. This is a lot split. This is an application from Nathan Hubble for the property at 16696 Towar Avenue to allow the subject property to be split into 2 new parcels. Ms. Schmidt again.
Thank you. The proposed split meets the requirements of the RA Residential Agricultural District. It's also consistent with the master plan and the neighborhood compatibility. The proposed split does not meet all of the land division compliance. Specifically, Lot A would not meet the depth to width ratio. Subdivision regulations do allow the city council to grant exceptions to those standards in specific cases where it is deemed that hardship, unusual topography conditions, or unique conditions justify such exception. At the public hearing, the Planning Commission requested additional information. Staff did provide that in your packet. The applicant is requesting that the City Council waive the depth to width ratio of 5.36 to 1 to allow the applicant to split the lot at 16696 Towar Avenue. The existing lot has a depth ratio of 2.5 to 1, so it is at the max already. The purpose of the requirement is to prevent long, skinny lots with little bit of frontage along the streets that would not have future access to develop the rear portion of the property. It was desired, or if it's desired or appropriate at a future time, the rear lot would have the ability to be split so that in the future, a third lot could be made. To avoid having that property at the back not be developable. So, but however, this would require a city council waiver to grant access easement and drive to the rear lot in lieu of the street frontage. The property south of the proposed projects are zoned R rural, M median density, and D development under Meridian Township. I did include in your packet the basis for those different zoning districts. The property south of the equestrian property in Meridian Township These properties range anywhere from 0.12 acres to 1.94 acres. In your packet, I showed a variety of the different lots and size for comparison. The applicant is nearly finished improving the existing house. They will be soon putting it on the market. The desire is to split the lots so that they can build a house onto the existing garage along Towar Avenue where there was once a house. They cannot get a building permit without an approved lot split. And in turn, they cannot, without the lot split, they can not get a building permit. So it's a unique situation. Condition number 4 that's in your draft conditions was drafted to address this potential issue that leaving the garage behind could potentially create a non-conforming situation if the lot split were done without this condition. The city attorney, Tom Yaden, expressed his concern that this would not be it would be difficult to defend if the property owner decided that they were going to challenge it in court. Specifically, the portion where it states that the garage would have to be torn down in order to get the split. However, they're currently wanting the split to build onto that garage. So we'll have to, you'll want to consider that in your decision. The applicant is building the house. He is a builder. He has stated that he purchased the property hoping that he could split the lot and market 2 homes. The existing house is nearly complete and is ready to market. It would likely be more difficult to sell the existing house if the garage remains in its current condition. So it is in the best interest of the applicant to either demolish the garage or move forward to building a home onto the garage. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions from Ms. Schmidt? Commissioner Wolf?
Yes. The staff report, as you just told us, talks about 2 different possible ways of splitting the lot. One of them is what the applicant has proposed. That would create a lot that is too deep and thus require a special exception from council. Another way to split it, as you mentioned, would be to split the back of the lot off to create 3 or maybe even 4 lots, but that requires a special exception because the lots at the rear would not have street frontage. So my question is there another way, any way to split this lot that would be conforming with special exceptions? And the way that occurs to me is, could they put a street down, let's say the middle or somewhere into the lot, and then divide the remaining part into multiple traditional sized lots? It looks like there's easily room for at least 6 lots here. And what would be involved in doing that? And could it be done in a conforming way without special exceptions?
It could be feasible. However, it would require a public street be developed,
yep.
Which would take the city's approval to put in a public street and take care of that street. And it probably is very unlikely that that would occur. But I guess it could, but not very likely for that to be approved as a public street.
Okay, what I'm getting at, I mean, what was in the back of my mind is, what does our code expect to be done with a lot such as this?
That's a question.
Does it expect it to remain as it is forever with no division? Go ahead.
I think that it comes down to, and this is something that we have sent to the city attorney, is our subdivision ordinance is very in need in looking at and changing. it's been that way for quite some time, and again, has been on the list. So we are hoping to get this done soon. And I think it really is a flaw in our ordinance, but we have to see if Planning Commission and Council feels the same way.
Back to the idea of another way of developing it. You say it would have to be a public street? Putting a private road in there would not satisfy it?
No, it has to be a public street, the way the ordinance is written currently, which, you know, makes it very difficult. That's why the exception is in there for council to approve a waiver.
And is this site too small to be eligible for a PUD or some sort of development like that?
It would have to be rezoned for that purpose, and that's not part of the master plan. So it would be difficult, but it seems reasonable that it could.
All right. I do want to make some comments about the, well, unless, does anyone else have questions before I do that?
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Commissioner Wolf, I see no hands, so please proceed.
Yeah, I spent a fair amount of time looking at the map. If you look at the lot comparison map, which is on, I think it's page 8 of the PDF. The first thing I wanted to point out is that if you look at the lots that are in the Meridian Township portion of that diagram, which are the most of the light gray, there are 2 different colors of gray. They make up most of the area in the center of that page. You'll see that a very large number of them exceed the 2.5 to 1 depth ratio. So now that doesn't apply, that's our standard. It doesn't apply in Meridian Township, and these, I'm sure these were platted probably before that was in effect, and you know, there's reasons they're like that. But I actually checked some of them. There's a couple of them that are almost 4 to 1 ratio. So my point is that in this, let's call it a neighborhood or this area, it's pretty common for there to be lots that are much deeper, have a greater depth to width ratio than our standard. So this lot would not be out of character with. Ms. Schmidt provided the lot areas for quite a few of the parcels along Towar Road within Meridian Township. But I want to also point out that if you move north of Meridian Township, when you get out of the lots that are shaded in the gray and the green, right there you cross the county line into Clinton County. And there's a number of lots right there, smaller lots, on the side of Bath Township. They are, well, if you can see the area that's marked as Bath Township, the property in the upper left corner of that is the Notting Stables. The property.
Can I interrupt for just a sec?
Yes.
Staff, is it possible to get this map up on the screen so that anybody that happens to be watching can see? I've got it in front of me, but it occurred to me that not everybody has that with them. Could you hold on for just a second, Commissioner Wolf?
Yep. In the meantime, while they're getting that up, it's not quite that page, but I think it might be the next page. Yes, that's good right there. Actually, scroll upward a little bit more. Yeah. So that area near the top where it says Bath Township, if you think of that as kind of a large rectangle surrounded by a dark blue line, I guess it is. In the upper left corner of that, the parcel there is Nottingham Farms. The parcel south of that is owned by the same owners as Nottingham Farms. The parcel to the east across Towar is also owned by those owners as well. But the point is, as you go south from there, there are 9 additional parcels counting on both sides of the road. These are in Bath Township. And I checked the Clinton County property records and found the frontage widths of these 9. Now, the parcel or that's being requested to be split is just a little bit north of there, and the frontages for the split would be 160 and 137 feet frontage for those 2 new parcels they're asking to make. That's 137 and 160. The parcels that are south of Nottingham Farms in Bath Township have widths of 104, 132, 100, 138, 147, 199, 270, and 228. And actually there is one flagged lot that has a frontage of only 20 feet. It's about the most extreme flagged lot you can imagine. So the proposed lots would fall very nicely into the middle of these widths. They would be wider in their frontage than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, either 5 or 6 of the lots, and narrower than 3 of them. So, and the point of that is that as you are viewing the lots from the street, the newly proposed split lots would not look any different than the lots that are to the south of the properties of the 2 people who have spoken to us in opposition to the split. So it's my feeling that this split would not be creating properties that are out of character with the surrounding properties.
Thank you, Commissioner Wolf. Any other comments? I will add that it sounds like I'm of a similar mind of Commissioner Wolf, that in as much as I appreciate the concerns that were raised by the nearby property owners, that we're not talking about a rezoning, we're not talking about subdivision into multiple lots. We're talking about the division into one additional lot, and that in as much as there will be construction noise, hopefully that will be minimized and will not impact the horses to the south to any great extent, or certainly for not to a great length of time. That I wouldn't expect the traffic from one additional house to be significant enough to warrant any great concern. With respect to Ms. Cook's comments about marijuana grow facility, there are other avenues that can be used to address whether that was occurring or not. My feeling is that the application being made here is entirely appropriate. Ultimately, council is going to have to determine whether or not to permit this. I'll call it a variance, but sort of the break from the established depth to width ratio. But I think that this is a place where I'm comfortable, and actually was comfortable before Commissioner Wolf made his comments of a few moments ago, that this is the right decision for this particular lot, and I'm in favor of it. Any other comments or any other questions? We don't have I guess we don't even have a motion on the floor yet.
I do have one quick question. This is Kusler.
Yes, please.
Yeah, regarding condition 4, I think Ms. Schmidt had brought up, that maybe that wasn't enforceable, but it seems to be in line with what the builder is looking to do. What's a reasonable amount of time? Do we strike that condition altogether? Do we implement a reasonable amount of time? Just looking for some conversation on that.
Schmidt, did the applicant give you any indication as to when this is like? It sounds to me like they're champing at the bit here.
Yeah, they did suggest that they would be, if this were approved, that they would be working on getting their drawings ready for a building permit as soon as possible.
Commissioner Wolf?
I was actually the one who raised this issue with staff when I saw this lot split, about the idea that the garage, leaving the garage alone on the newly split lot would be non-conforming. Now that we've heard all of the discussion on this, I am less concerned about it than I was originally. So I could kind of go either way. I'm not sure it's really necessary anymore. And I'll point out that the property to the south of this is already non-conforming in that same way, I believe. Well, perhaps it's not. It's not clear what the building on that property is being used for, whether it's actually in use for a principal use, or if it would be considered an accessory building. So I could be wrong about that. It might be conforming. But anyway, I am not as concerned as I was originally. And I guess if the city attorney is concerned about this condition, I don't really have a problem with removing it.
Thank you, Commissioner Wolf. A motion would be in order. Vice Chair.
I'll make the motion. I move that in the matter of the request of Nathan Hubble for a lot split application to split the property at 16696 Towar Avenue into 2 lots, that the Planning Commission recommend approval to City Council for the proposed lot split, including the waiver of the lot width to depth ratio, subject to the following conditions of approval. And I would designate the first 3 conditions of approval included in the staff report.
Kusler, support.
God, I'm so proud of these guys.
Well, thank you. The motion has been made by Vice Chair Boyle and seconded by Commissioner Kusler. Is there any discussion on that motion? This, in addition to Ms. Schmidt's collective pride. Commissioner Wolf.
I just wanted to make one more comment. Is it Ms. Cook, the owner of the property to the south?
That's correct.
Yes. In response to one other of her comments, she was commenting that the lot split would be somehow unbalanced, because one is smaller or the house would be smaller or something like that. It wouldn't be uniform or balanced or something. And I don't think that has any standing at all. If you go up and down that road, there are variations, there are wide variations between adjacent lots and buildings and how they're used and spaced and set back and everything. So that is not a concern at all of mine.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, Mr. Haywood, could we please have a roll call vote?
Bowman,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Cahill,
Yes.
Kusler,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
and Wolf.
Yes.
The yeas have it unanimously.
Thank you. I didn't see that the applicant was actually here. Maybe they're one of the hidden phone numbers and they didn't ask for additional input from them. So I guess I apologize, although it seems that their application has prevailed. And if they are still online, know that this will go before council in the next several weeks and you will have your final resolution at that time. That'll move us on to item 8, new business, of which we have none, and then on to item 9, commissioner concerns. Any commissioner concerns this evening? Vice Chair Boyle.
Well, I last month talked about the need to go forward with the housing study. And I think tonight we had a great example of why one of our other projects also we would like to see go forward, and that's the form-based code. Tonight was an excellent example of where the form-based code would have been great assistance to the commission, to council, and to the development downtown. It is gratifying that development continues ahead even in these difficult times. And I certainly hope that we will be able to go forward and move the form-based code along in the near future.
Hear, hear. Oops, Mr. Haywood.
Yeah, I guess I can just speak to that very briefly. I can't speak to the housing study tonight. I apologize. I don't know exactly where we are with that. But the form-based code, we have had discussions internally about starting that process again. So we're kind of refreshing our or reorienting ourselves to where we left off, and we'll be in touch with the committee members shortly about how to pick that back up and begin moving that forward. So now that we're back in the office pretty much full time, we can devote a little more time to it. So I appreciate you bringing up the concern, and we'll pick it up and keep it moving forward.
Thank you. Any other commissioner concerns? Commissioner Cahill.
I've spoken on this several times in the past, and I don't know the situation, but Alice Drieger, when she was speaking earlier, was talking about Campbell's store operating without a special use permit selling alcohol. And I don't really know that we need to have a special use permit for that. Many places do not. But if we do have it, I think it's incumbent upon the city of East Lansing to enforce it. Because if they're not in compliance with local laws, then they're in violation of the Liquor Control Code, I believe. And I think, as I said, I don't know if that's actually happening or not. But if it is, I think something needs to be done. Either the requirement has to be removed or the city has to enforce it.
And I actually think that, thank you, Commissioner Cahill, that whether it was Commissioner Wolf or Mr. Haywood that had mentioned when this was brought up at the top of the meeting, that has been an item that's been on our, I guess, our deep radar for some time now. That I seem to recall that when it last came up, perhaps it was for the Target store, it was acknowledged at City Council. Again, my memory may be failing me, but that indeed that's more the jurisdiction of the state and less so for the really more of a cursory or a courtesy review, but locally with all, with your understanding, with your comments in mind, Commissioner Cahill, that indeed, if it's just a courtesy review, or if we're not going to enforce it, then why don't we move it along? And so my response, any other commissioner concerns? Not seeing any hands, and so that being the case, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Kusler, so moved.
Wolf, second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Kusler and seconded by Commissioner Wolf to adjourn our meeting. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? We are adjourned. So let's, I don't know what you didn't hear. So let's try again. We are, that motion passes. We are adjourned at 9:11. Does that get you all you needed to hear? I sure hope so. Thank you for your time, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. Take care.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night.